Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Just following up on the conversation we were just having about the most disgraceful person in politics in 2024 and my awarding that dishonor to Barack Obama, in part because of this distillation of the Obama century to this point for the left by David Samuels in Tablet, the Rapid Onset Political Enlightenment piece. One of those pieces like John Anton's Flight 93, Shelby Steele's Culture of Deference pieces in 2016 that are like the important pieces of the moment in terms of really getting a more global understanding of what you see happening around you. So let me just read one excerpt from Samuels' piece on Obama and these permission structures, the permission structure machine that he and Axelrod built to replace the Democratic Party. It was in its essence neither modern nor conservative. It was totalitarian in its essence, a device for getting people to act against their beliefs by substituting new and better beliefs through the top-down controlled and leveraged application of social pressure, which, among other things, eliminates the position of the spectator. Silence is violence. The integrity of the individual is violated in order to further the superior interests of the superego of humanity, the party, which knows which beliefs are right and which are wrong. The party is the ghost in the machine, which appears to run on automatic pilot, using the human desire for companionship and social connection as fuel for an effort to detach individuals from their own desires and substitute the dictates of the party, which is granted the unlimited right to enforce its superior opinions on all of mankind. You remove people's consciousness from them, and it becomes something that exists outside of you. The repository of it is the party. And the weakness of human beings, or just orientation, it's not necessarily a weakness, I suppose, which is referenced here, the desire for companionship and social connection is fuel for an effort to detach individuals from their own desires and substitute the dictates of the party. Now, sort of how that was done and getting into the details is a longer conversation, but that's certainly, I think, a very succinct description of what you saw happening to people who succumbed to, as Samuels goes through the progression, the selling of go back to the selling of Obamacare. The selling of Obamacare, the selling of the Iran nuclear deal, a fast forward to Russiagate, and then COVID.
They sold us a bunch of lies.
And then, of course, you get into many in the last 6 to 8 months with the replacement of Biden and the installment of Kamala. For more on this and other matters, pleased to be joined, as we always are, by David Marcus, a journalist living in West Virginia and the author of Charade, The COVID Lies That Crushed a Nation. David, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Merry Christmas.
Same to you. So, that's Samuel's piece about these permission structures. And the good news is, spoiler alert, Musk and Trump, and to some extent Netanyahu, have left those permission structures that Obama and Axelrod et al. Created over the last 2 decades in tatters.
I agree with that, but I like Samuel's piece very much. I do think there's an important caveat, which is that these permission structures controlled the lives of more educated people far less than it did people with no college degree. I spent a lot of this period of time working as a mover, and nobody in that box truck was responding to any of these social pressures, right? And we just saw some of that in this election as these working class voters move towards the Republican Party. So I think that that's important to note. And I think that on some of this stuff, like the trans issue is a great example, where for about 10 or 15 years, most people's attitude was like, listen, it's not a lot of people. What's the difference? Let's just be nice. But it was always on a head-on collision course with public policy in terms of shelters and prisons, sports, all of this stuff. So I think that what's also happening is that some of the ridiculousness that underlies the permission structures are really becoming blatantly obvious to Americans as nonsense.
Well, I think that's a fair caveat and a good point. But then you see the left's reaction, even in the face of defeat. Jen Psaki and others. Hey, we don't have to move off our position on men playing girls' sports, basically, because it's a small percentage of people. Dick Durbin just did the same thing at a hearing with the NCAA head Charlie Baker last week. So we don't have to change our positions. We're not going to change our positions. And it seems to me the calculus with these permission structures is we have enough power to overcome the one-offs who are willing to stand up to us, who are willing to speak out at a school board or say no. Or a coach who says no, men should not play women's sports, or college volleyball players who say no, men should not play college volleyball against us. But we can overcome that. We can steamroll them because for a long time they were steamrolling them.
Yeah, but I think there's two things here that are happening. One is that now some of the calls are coming from inside the building for the Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. Seth Moulton and Fetterman and these guys are like, listen, I mean, Joe Manchin, right? We're not going to win another election if we stick on this stuff. The other thing that I think has happened on some of these issues, whether it's DEI or trans or whatever it is conservatives had been afraid, had wanted to find some accommodation or compromise, right? We can work this out. And I think that's over. Like, as far as the trans issue goes, the conservative position now is it's not real. And we need to teach kids in school that it's not real. That's a very different approach than even 5, 6, 7 years ago. So things are changing, and it's exciting to watch.
Well, that's the permission structures being left in tatters that Samuels describes.
Yep.
Well, we need to start stop talking about pronouns when they're in kindergarten and letting people decide, well, you might be a boy or you might be a girl when they're an actual girl or a boy.
100%, and that's what I mean. It can't be a nuanced conversation anymore. You know, it was a nuanced conversation because everybody does want to be nice, right? And very few people care how adults choose to live their lives and things like that. But what underlies all of this is this question of whether sex is a biological reality or something that we just believe about ourselves. And we have to be vocal and clear that it's biological reality. And you've seen President Trump move in this direction. He's promised executive orders that's going to make it very clear what reality is. And then if there are people who want to live outside of reality, then we can figure out what the accommodation is going to be.
Speaking of people living outside reality, that's a perfect segue to the D.C. press corps. And we got one reaction from a D.C. press corps veteran of CNN and the Washington Post, Chris Klizza, to that Wall Street Journal piece last week where there are 50 some odd, mostly unnamed staffers and people in the Biden administration saying, basically, yeah, he was senile and not mentally competent from day one, which a lot of people observed, but you were told that was an improper observation right up until it wasn't. Chris Klizza on, in retrospect, what he should have done.
As a reporter, I have a confession to make. I should have pushed harder earlier for more information about Joe Biden's mental and physical well-being and any signs of decline. So let me explain.
We don't need the explanation. He said it was just a matter. He wasn't as aggressive as he should have been. And hey, mea culpa.
Listen, I'm going to tell you what the problem with my industry is, and I'm convinced that this really is it. The problem is that nobody gets fired. Clarissa Ward from CNN with the fake "we're releasing a stream." Nobody got fired. Right? The New York Times last year, right after October 7th, saying, a children's hospital got bombed. There's 500 dead. Really, who's your source? Hamas. Right? Turned out to be complete nonsense. Right. But they just believed the guys who went and committed this massacre that this thing happened. Nobody got fired. Nothing's going to change in my business until that's a professional death sentence. And it really should be. I feel like it used to be. Like in the 90s, when something like that would happen, of course the person would be fired. Now they just run a correction and they say, well, we were leaning in the right direction anyway. We were close. No, the industry is completely broken because there are absolutely no consequences, except CNN and MSNBC losing viewership, which they're losing because nobody trusts them because they lie and they don't fire anybody.
I wanted to get to your take as well, because this was a good one. This sort of was my thinking on it, too. You crystallize it better, of course. Trump and Musk, last week it was Trump's impulsiveness and Musk still wrestling with his newfound influence, and it was the old chaos of the Trump years, and it's back. And this CR business, this near government shutdown, was a good example of the inability to govern and the chaos that will reign during a second Trump term.
Yeah, look, I mean, as I said in my column at Fox over the weekend, this was a masterclass. Trump clearly is much better in 2025, or will be in 2025, at understanding the machinations of D.C. than he was in 2017. He's also not under all of these ridiculous investigations. So he handled that really well. He used Musk and Ramaswamy as spokespeople for him very well. And as to chaos, there's a quick story about Trump that I love. There's a diplomat. I was at the Army War College National Security Seminar, and this diplomat was talking and was asked, does Trump ever tweet something that seems to go against American policy and the phones at the embassy start blowing up? The diplomat laughed and said, yes, that does happen. But then went on to say that diplomacy often gets into a rut where everyone takes the path of least resistance and nothing ever changes. And every once in a while, one of those tweets and one of those flurries of phone calls would actually lead to positive change. So look, he was elected to be a change agent. That's what he's doing.
David Marcus, journalist living in West Virginia, the author of Charade, The COVID Lies That Crushed a Nation. David, thank you as always. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hallelujah! Holy
On AM 560.
Where's the Tylenol?
The Answer.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more than usual. For many families, joining MediShare means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people, obviously. But what's more, MediShare members like it a lot. Their satisfaction rate is 98%. Imagine that. And MediShare is a proven thing, too, for over 30 years. It's a Christian community of hundreds of thousands of people now. And here's the thing. If you join before December 31st and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee, so you save even more right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call and you'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline is December 31st. So call now and you'll save even more. Here's the number. 844-47-BIBLE. That's 844-47-BIBLE. 844-47-BIBLE.
As we near the end of the year, many families in Latin America and the Caribbean are struggling just to get by. Inflation, food shortages, and natural disasters have left